I'm like, want to get a Cybertruck myself. And I'm a little worried though, someone's going to write Elon on it. It's like, because it's like, or it's going to get like, Molotov cocktail. So maybe not, but we'll see. But yeah, no, I think this is hugely transformative because it's like, look, I have my license. I know how to drive. I hate driving. I think driving is like the single most dangerous thing that most people do in their whole life. And it's like the most likely to just have this catastrophic, tragic cutting short of their life. And especially for someone like me, like I don't drive that much because, we have a car, but I don't use it that much because we're in the city. I don't need it. I'd rather take the subway or an Uber. Like it's so much easier. I don't have to deal with parking. And so for someone like me, it's like, I hate like, changing lanes on the highway. Like the very thing that I find scariest is the thing like that self-driving's been able to kind of do in its sleep for like a while now. And so to me, it's like this hugely transformative thing from a safety perspective and convenience, and like my willingness to like take our, girls to like, ballet lessons or whatever is a lot higher if I know I can just sort of like have the car do it safely and I can just be there as a last gap, just in case. So I think that's huge. But, look, the thing I'm really excited about is the robot, because the robot's just, I really do think this is like, people just underestimate the impact of this, that because it's like one of these things where, earlier I was talking about how all the pieces are there to have this like really capable agent for like customer service for like American Express. Like you don't have to say, suppose we had this technology. Like it already exists. You just literally have to just put some pieces together. And that's why I'm sort of confused why it hasn't happened yet, because I feel like I could make something in a couple months that would work really well. So what the hell are they waiting for? But like just by assembling stuff out of pieces that exist, right? All the technology's there. And I'd say in the case of the humanoid robots, like all the sort of hardest parts are sort of already there. Like, like for the eyes, the ears, the vestibular sense, these are sensors that have been perfected and then some in smartphones. They've been great for years and they're dirt cheap. And like, this, system on a chip, for doing sort of all the base kind of stuff of controlling things, like not even the neural network stuff. It's never been faster and cheaper and more power efficient. And so, and then it's like we have the LLMs now. They're multimodal. You have self-driving, which is essentially the same problem, except, instead of rolling, you're walking. And then like, we've had humanoid robots like from companies like Boston Dynamics for a while. The problem was always the control problem, which we were solving in this kind of very brittle, slow, silly way, where like you look the behind the scenes of all their impressive videos is them like hand tuning and coding and refining so that if in the first 5,000 times it tries to do the backflip, it falls on its ass. That's not what anybody cares about. What we want is we want a robot that just does it like, a child can by the age of, 3 or 4, which is like they can just do stuff and you can push them and they can react and it just handles it. Like maybe can't do a backflip, but like it's not that, like the hard part is to get something that doesn't need to be programmed, that could just be do things through imitation and then just like through reinforcement learning in a sort of like virtual gymnasium, explore, and that's really where all these things are, changing. That like in the past, you'd have to do all this crazy math, like, Lie groups and stuff to do, inverse kinematics problem to know where your end effector is going to be at the end of a 6-axis arm. Now it's like, forget it, just like feed in the angle data from the sensors and like the torques and just have like a recurrent neural network or, just, hooked up to some reinforcement learning thing, and it'll just figure it all out like the way brains do. And so all the pieces are there. And then the most important piece of all is like the brain, the prefrontal cortex that can do planning, understanding language, make a plan and execute it and compare how it's going to how I wanted it to go. And we've got that now. That's the hardest single part. And we solved the IQ problem. We have these smart models that are smarter than probably most people now, certainly most college graduates, I'd say, in many cases. We just have to put them all together. And like, if we can do that, even let's say it's at the $50,000 price point. I mean, hell, make it a simpler thing. Say at the $90,000 price. Well, guess what costs $90,000? Like a Cybertruck, and you can lease that for like $1,000 a month for that 90. I know because I'm looking at this, right? Like, and so $1,000 a month. Well, if I just look at how much we pay, like to get a cleaning lady come to my apartment, it's like, I don't know, $300-400 a month. When we move to a house, it'll probably be even more. And then, okay, how much does it cost to get somebody to, cut the grass? That's like another couple $100, right? And then, by the way, like the cleaning person who comes, they don't even do that great a job. They just like do the floor. They're not organizing anything. I mean, this Tesla robot,
and they're only there a couple times during the whole month. Whereas,
right. The Tesla
someone
robot,
who's there every day.
The Tesla robot, while we're sleeping, could be with the toothbrush in the grout, polishing everything to like a mirror shine, and just like doing everything, like literally perfect, organize everything perfectly. They know what everything is. They know where things go. Oh, this is the charger for this device. Let me put it next to the device to make it easy for them. All this stuff. And they can just do everything for you. They could not just clean the floor, but like clean your shoes and do your laundry and like cook for you, and like just so many things that they could do. Like once you've solved one of these problems, you have the dexterity and the intelligence to do basically all of them. And so if you can lease this thing for $1,000 a month, it's like, this is already, there's a ton of people. Now, not everybody has a spare $1,000 a month to spend, but okay, let's say it starts out that much. Within
a lot of businesses do.
Well, that's for damn sure. Because guess what? $1,000 a month is like $12,000 a year. That's nothing. That's not, and like the full, like even if you just have like
that's like the worst of worker, crappy, part-time employees cost you.
Exactly. If you want a full-time worker, when you fully bake in for, workman's comp and the benefits and everything, you're already there, but you have to pay that every year instead of once, to buy this thing. And now you own it. And by the way, if you do it on a per hour worked, because they don't have to sleep, right? But then it's more than that. It's like they never come in drunk or stoned. They never miss a day because they're sick. They never steal from you. There's a lot of benefits here where it's like, but also
it's at least an order of magnitude less sexual harassment cases at least.
Yeah, that's for sure. Right. But then you think of all these other things, like think of all the people who work at like skilled nursing facilities and assisted living, communities, and that just like help the old people get out of bed and get up out of the chair and serve them their food and, rotate them in the bed so they don't get bed sores, help them to go to the bathroom. That stuff could all be done too. It's like massive swaths of the economy could very quickly be replaced, where there'd be this very powerful economic incentive to do that. Unless we, I think there's probably going to be some crazy robot taxes where if you want to replace, it's like how with like H-1B visas, like you have to kind of show that you tried to hire an American first before they let you do it. There'll probably be a thing like where to get a license to buy a new humanoid robot, you had to like try to hire a person and you couldn't find someone, there'll be some kind of thing like that. Because otherwise it's just going to be just so disruptive. I just have to imagine the political, it's because right now people think of robots in a kind of fun way where they joke about Terminator maybe, but it's like, everyone's like, oh, cool, robots, that'd be great. Something to do my laundry. And they're not like completing the thought of like, wait a second, that could do my job too, and it's like, what the hell do I need to get paid all this money for then? So,
yeah,
but people really are underestimating this. Like I see people talk about this like it's 15, 20 years away. And I'm like, yeah, more like 20 months away, dude. Like you have no idea what's coming. Like,
yeah.
So and I think, look, and then you're like, well, who's going to be the winner of this? It's like, I mean, if you look at American companies, at least, it seems to me like there's only just a few possible guys like that are going to be doing it. Like I think Tesla seems like they have everything they need to be able to dominate this. Like they're really good at electrical and mechanical engineering. They already have the self-driving stuff they can piggyback on. They've already been doing this now for 2 years? I
think longer than that now. Yeah.
And they're very well capitalized. They don't need to like raise a bunch of startup money, right? I mean, and then what, you have Figure? I mean, maybe, but like they don't have all those advantages, I think. Boston Dynamics, it's like, okay, they've been at it for 30 years now. I'm not convinced they have what it takes. I think the real competition is going to be from the Chinese. Like Unitree is really doing well. But yeah, I look, and you just think about like, I mean, even if you have a car, it's like, how much are you really using your car? Whereas like something that can do anything that a human can do, that's like much more transformative. That's worth much more money, like to the economy, if you can do that. I mean, I think you're going to see a world where before you necessarily buy the robot to cut your grass, there'll be like this new hybrid lawn care company that has a bunch of robots, humanoid robots, or just, kind of self-driving lawnmowers. And they'll just come over and it'll be one dude controlling the fleet of robots and charging like a half or a third of what a human crew would charge now. And that'll be the sort of first to happen, because someone will make that, see a real great opportunity to make a lot of money doing it. And so it'll happen kind of first. And they'll be like willing to be a beta tester and make, go through the growing pains.
Yep. So talk to me about how you see the technical challenges of getting something like FSD to work, and then just
in a humanoid robot.
To the humanoid robot that at least for full self-driving right now, we don't have something that's running that compute in a cloud. So it's got to run on a tiny little computer that fits inside of a car. It's not a rack of GPUs. It can only pull, I think right now the hardware 3 computers are somewhere below 500 watts, and then the hardware 4 ones are somewhere below 500 watts, and they're talking about the hardware 5 computers being able to pull up to 1,000 watts. But limited power, definitely limited footprint, and it's got to make all of these decisions to drive in real time.
Yeah, sure. So, well, obviously a car has a much bigger battery than, a humanoid robot can have, right? Because the whole thing is basically a giant battery, like in the chassis. But guess what?
But you're reducing your range. Yeah. The more power you use.
Cars can go 90 miles an hour. This thing's going to go like 5 miles an hour. So that just means like the number of like frames, per second that you have to be able to like you could process like every like 5th frame and still be like,
oh yeah, you're talking about the robot. Yes.
Yeah. That's why the robot's got a much. Also, the other thing is like, if you fuck up in the car, you crash, everyone dies. If you fuck up in the robot, it like bumps into, your cabinet at a very slow rate of speed. It's not that big of a deal. And also like the thing is like, they're just moving so slowly that just from like kind of proximity sensors, it's slow enough relative to the speed of their own actuators that the second there's a sort of mismatch between their perception and the world, but then they see that they're about to hit something, they can just pull back quickly like a human can. You can't do that in a car, because you're just like, you can't just suddenly change your steering because now you're going to hit somebody else. You can't slam on the brakes because you're going to fly forward. So it's a much easier kind of space to like compensate for stuff when you're going much, much more slowly, where your rate of locomotion relative to the rate of speed of your actuators moving your limbs. So I don't think it'll be an issue at all. And I think like, it's just lower stakes, right? It's more about like obstacle avoidance and not like falling and like,
I think the real difficulty there is just the range of different tasks that you're going to do, and having a form of intelligence that's generalized enough to do all the different things.
I don't think that'll be a problem at all, because you literally like, they already have this incredibly rich world model just by virtue of like, even when these LLMs are trained without multimodal, where they can't natively understand images, they have a very rich world model, just like a blind person does, right? But when they're trained end-to-end multimodal with like vision, they think about images with tokens in a similar kind of way that they think about, sentences, and right, like, to them, it's like they already know what all these objects are just from the training process. Not only that, they know what they're used for. Like, they know that, that chargers are used to charge electrical devices, and they can recognize that this is an iPhone charger and this is just a generic USB-C. They already know all this stuff. Like, you don't have to tell it that. And they already know, like, the sort of world model of chargers need to be plugged into an outlet, and then the other end plugged into a device. You don't have to tell them any of this stuff. And it's like really, and they know what food is and cooking. And like, already, like, they know every recipe under the sun practically, and how to do it, and what a frying pan is, and that you either need some kind of butter or oil or it's going to burn. You don't have to tell it any of this stuff. So to me, it's just a question of closing the feedback loop of combining this sort of perception visually with the ocular, motor feedback loop of like, and that's why there's so much emphasis at Tesla on the pressure sensitivity of the fingers and being able to like pick up an egg delicately, but then also crack it, like doing those big ranges of like big differences and sort of like the ratio of like the smallest, most gentle touch to like the strongest one. That's been something that robots really struggled with. Like in the past, like these KUKA or Fennec arms, they could pick up and move a car, but they also could knock your freaking head off if you get close to them, because they're just too powerful. They're always, running at like extreme torque.
100% all the time.
Yeah, or close enough that it's like you can't even be around them. They have to be caged off. And so, but it's like that's the problem they have to solve, is like getting, and to me, this is like largely a solved problem already based on the demos I've seen. They're basically already there. It's just like, okay, let's just refine it a little bit more. Let's make it a little bit more cost effective. That's the sort of touch and dexterity at the hands level. But in terms of the locomotion, like these recent demos from Unitree are unbelievable, where they show real robot that, by the way, the baseline version of this robot's like 20 grand. They get the fully programmable ones like 50 or 60. But the one that's sort of locked down that you can't program it yourself is like 20, which means like just the cost of the bill of goods of the actuators and stuff is probably like 15, And this thing is able to run without falling pretty fast. It's able to do running kicks, like roundhouse kicks. It's unbelievable what this thing can do already. So to me, it's like this has already been largely solved. And it's just like putting these pieces together and doing the sort of reliability and
it's a lot of hard engineering work, like not getting it to just work once, but it has to work well every time. And then we got to build it at scale and all that stuff. But
that's just, to me, it's just a question of like when, not if. And the when, it's more like, does it happen in 2.5 years or 4 years? But it's like, as soon as you have line of sight that something's like 4 years away, like 4 years goes by in a flash, in the grander scheme of things. It's like, still sometimes amazes me that we're in 2025. It's like, because it feels like, COVID wasn't even that long ago. Things move quickly. And so it's like, like as soon as you have line of sight that, oh, maybe I can do that. Maybe you're like, let me start planning for it. Like it will be available, and it's like, then already behaviors and investment patterns start to change.